Elias Rowan sat alone inside the narrow cockpit of his damaged scout ship. Warning lights flashed around him, glowing red against the dark interior. The ship drifted near Jupiter's orbit, where the remains of Earth's last defense fleet floated like silent ghosts. Elias watched pieces of broken ships spin slowly in space, and he felt a heavy pain in his chest. Every one of those ships had once carried people he knew, friends, mentors, and brave fighters who refused to surrender. Now only he remained, the last hope of a nearly defeated species. He adjusted the control panel, trying to bring some life back into the dying engines. They made a low humming sound, then went quiet again. His ship had taken too many hits. There was no way to escape this part of space. The Velen Dominion, rulers of 1,000 star systems, had finally cornered him. He knew they were coming, yet he kept working, trying to squeeze out one last chance. Humans were stubborn like that. Even when everything seemed lost, they tried again. A sudden, sharp beep echoed inside the cockpit. Elias's instincts sharpened immediately. He pulled up the radar screen and his heart tightened. 3 Velen Hunter ships appeared behind him, flying in a perfect formation. Their purple hulls reflected Jupiter's glow, making them look like shadows sliding through space. Elias knew these were not ordinary patrols. These hunters were the elite warriors of the Velen Dominion, trained to track down fugitives with impossible precision. He checked his navigation one more time, but there was nowhere to run. The moment he touched the engines, they sparked and shut down completely. Elias took a slow breath and looked out the front window. In the deep distance, a giant shape emerged, one so massive it made his small ship look like a toy. It was the Velen flagship, the throne ship of Empress Zarinth herself. Elias had heard stories about her since the beginning of the war. Some soldiers said she was cruel, others said she was brilliant. Some whispered she had never lost a battle in her life. What none of them knew was why she took a special interest in Earth. Most conquered planets were just added to the Velen's long list of victories, but Earth had resisted for years, much longer than expected. Something about humans fascinated the Empress, though no one could understand what. As his ship drifted helplessly, a powerful purple beam connected to it, locking it in place. Elias felt the metal floor shake under him. The Velen hunters had disabled his systems and were preparing to board. Elias pressed the emergency switch beside his seat. The ship sealed its airlocks and locked down the cockpit. He stood up slowly, checked the small emergency tool on his belt, and waited. He had no weapon, no army, no backup, but he still stood tall, his eyes steady and unafraid. If this was the end, he was determined to face it with dignity. The airlock door on the left side hissed, releasing a thin cloud of steam. Metal clamps shifted and the door slid open. 3 tall Velen guards stepped inside, their armor shining with blue lights that pulsed slowly like a heartbeat. Their faces were smooth and slightly elongated, with deep violet eyes that glowed faintly. One of them spoke in a calm voice. "Captain Elias Rowan, by command of Empress Zarinth, you are to be taken alive." Elias did not fight. Fighting now would be useless. Instead, he nodded and allowed the guards to place binders around his wrists. They guided him through the corridor of his small ship and out onto the boarding bridge that connected to the massive Velen flagship. As he stepped inside the throne ship, Elias felt a strange mix of awe and fear. The hallways were wide, with flowing silver walls that almost seemed alive. Blue energy patterns moved across them like rivers of light. Everything was quiet, oddly peaceful, unlike the harsh metal interiors of human ships. The guards led him through several long corridors until they reached a tall door marked with glowing symbols. The door opened by itself, revealing a chamber with soft purple lights and a high ceiling. At the far end stood a raised platform, and on it sat Empress Zarinth. Elias's first reaction was surprise. She was nothing like he had imagined. Her skin was a deep violet, smooth and bright under the lights. Her eyes were sharp and intelligent, with a shimmer that made them look almost reflective. Her dark hair, long and braided with glowing silver threads, fell over her shoulders like flowing water. She wore armor that looked more ceremonial than functional, decorated with fine lines that marked her rank. Yet it wasn't her appearance that struck him the most. It was the way she looked at him. There was no anger, no cruelty, no hatred. Instead, her eyes held curiosity, like she was trying to understand something hidden inside him. Zarinth lifted her hand lightly. The guard stepped back and left the chamber, the door sliding shut behind them. Elias found himself standing alone before the most powerful ruler in the galaxy. The Empress studied him quietly for a moment. "You are different from what I expected," she finally said, her voice calm and slightly melodic. Most humans who resisted this long were wild with fear or full of rage. "You are calm." Elias kept his back straight. "It won't change anything. You already won the war." Zarinth stood from her platform, descending the steps slowly. "Perhaps, but I did not summon you for surrender terms. I want to know why your people fight with such intensity, even when defeat is certain." She stopped a few steps away from him. "Your world is broken. Your fleets are destroyed. And yet you resist. Why?" Elias met her gaze without hesitation. "Because we don't fight only for survival. We fight for each other, for hope. Even a small chance is enough." His answer seemed to surprise her. She tilted her head slightly, studying his face longer than necessary. Elias felt her eyes searching for something in him, something she couldn't name. After a moment, she turned away and walked slowly toward a large window behind her throne. Beyond it, stars stretched endlessly, glowing softly against the black of space. She spoke without looking back. "You are the last surviving captain of Earth's fleet. You know things I want to understand. You will not be harmed, but you will stay under my observation." Elias's jaw tightened. "So I'm a prisoner." Zarinth looked at him again. For a brief moment, something gentle touched her expression. "A protected one," she said quietly. 2 guards returned to escort him to a secure but comfortable chamber elsewhere in the ship. As Elias walked through the halls, he thought about the Empress's eyes. They were calm, searching, and filled with something he could not explain. Inside her throne room, Zarinth remained standing by the window long after Elias left. She raised a hand and touched the glass lightly. Something inside her heart, something she had never experienced before, whispered to her. She did not understand it. She only knew one thing. Captain Elias Rowan was not like anyone she had ever met. And something about him stirred a strange feeling that she could not push away. It was the beginning of something dangerous, something forbidden, something that could change the galaxy itself. Elias woke up in a quiet room with soft silver walls and a gentle blue light coming from the ceiling. For a moment he did not know where he was. Then the memories returned slowly. The hunters, the giant throne ship, and Empress Zarinth standing before him like a calm storm. He sat up and looked around. The room was not a prison cell. It felt more like a guest chamber with a wide bed, clear glass panels, and a small table with fruit he had never seen before. A door on the right led to a cleansing room with warm mist that replaced water. He stood beside the window panel that opened to the stars. He could see the curve of Jupiter far below, glowing with quiet beauty. The sight should have given him peace, but his heart felt heavy. He was a prisoner, even if it didn't look like one. He was the last captain of Earth's fleet, and now he was alone in the heart of the Valen Dominion, surrounded by people who saw humans as something strange and unpredictable. A soft humming sound came from the door as it opened. A Valen attendant entered with a tray of food. Her skin was a lighter shade of purple and her eyes glowed a soft blue. She bowed slightly, placed the tray on the table, and stepped back without speaking. Elias thanked her, and she nodded politely before leaving again. Even simple gestures like these reminded him how different this place was. Everything was orderly, calm, almost unnervingly perfect. There were no angry voices, no rushing soldiers, no chaos like on human ships. He wondered if the Valen people acted this way because of strict rules, or because they simply did not experience emotions the same way humans did. After a few minutes, 2 guards arrived and informed him that the Empress wished to see him again. Elias followed them through the hallways. He paid attention to every corner, every turn, trying to form a map in his mind, not because he wanted to escape immediately, but because it felt natural to stay alert. When he entered the Empress's chamber again, she was standing near a round table covered with holographic pages. Symbols floated above the surface, glowing softly. She was studying something, her hands moving through the air as she flipped the glowing pages. She turned when she sensed him enter. Her eyes narrowed slightly, but not in anger, more like she was observing him carefully, trying to read every little detail. "You slept well, I hope?" she asked. Elias nodded. "Your people treated me respectfully." "That is my command," she replied. "You are here to share knowledge, not to be harmed." Elias stepped closer, keeping a safe distance. You said you wanted to understand why humans fight even when we have almost no chance. I still want that answer, she said, walking around the table slowly. Your species fascinates me. The Valen fight because they are trained. They fight because it is logical. But humans? She paused. You burn with something different. It is not logic. It is something deeper. It's hope, Elias said again. Humans always believe things can change even when things look impossible. The Empress studied his face for a long moment. Hope, she repeated softly as if tasting the word. I have read your record since last night. Stories, art, history. Humans create meaning even in small things. My people do not understand that. She turned back to the holographic pages. Elias noticed the symbols. They were images from old Earth documents. Photographs of oceans, forests, families, and celebrations. Sarenth had been studying them all night. You spent all this time reading about humanity? He asked. Yes, she admitted without hesitation. Your world has more color than any place I have seen. Your people express emotions freely. They laugh loudly and cry openly. In my empire, such things are rare. Elias watched her quietly. He could see something shifting inside her, a curiosity deeper than political interest. She was not studying humans to gain a military advantage. She was trying to understand their hearts. She turned toward him again. Tell me something simple, she said. Something from your life. Not about war, about what you loved before all this. Elias hesitated. Sharing anything personal felt strange, especially with the leader of the enemy empire, but the sincerity in her voice made him speak. I grew up near a small lake, he said slowly. When I was young, I used to watch the sunrise with my mother. The light would hit the water and make it sparkle. It always made me feel peaceful, like the world was safe. Sarenth listened carefully, her eyes softening. Your stories are filled with personal memories, she said quietly. My people learn from instruction, not from feeling. Maybe that is why you surprise us. You fight with your heart, not your training. Elias looked at her closely. Why do you want to understand us so much? Her expression changed slightly, almost like she was confused by her own answer. Because I feel something I do not recognize, she said. Something that makes me want to look deeper. She stepped closer, just a few steps away. Her eyes reflected the soft purple lights of the chamber. Elias felt tension build in the air, not dangerous or frightening, but strange and uncertain. You are different from the other humans I captured, she said softly. When others saw me, they were afraid or angry. But you look at me as if I am just another person. Because you are, Elias replied. Ruler or not, you're still someone trying to understand the world. Her eyes widened slightly. No one had ever spoken to her like that, without fear, without titles, without distance. Before she could respond, a sharp tone echoed in the room. A holographic figure appeared, a member of the Valen High Council. His voice was stern and cold. Empress, we require a report on the human prisoner. Sarenth's eyes darkened slightly. He is being questioned. Progress is steady. The counselor's gaze turned toward Elias. Be cautious, Empress. Humans are unpredictable. They form attachments easily. Their emotions are dangerous. Sarenth's expression tightened. The counselor disappeared, but his warning lingered in the air like smoke. After a moment of silence, Elias asked, Your council doesn't like that I'm here. They do not trust anything they cannot control, she said quietly. And they fear what they do not understand. She gestured toward a nearby seat. Come, sit, I want to continue. Elias sat across from her. She studied him again, but this time her expression held something warm, something thoughtful. What do humans feel when they lose everything? She asked. We stand again, Elias replied, because even if the world breaks, we believe it can be rebuilt. She leaned forward slightly. You believe this even now? When Earth is falling apart? Yes, Elias said without hesitation. Because there are still people alive, and as long as people are alive, hope is alive. The Empress's eyes softened again. She touched the table lightly, tracing one of the glowing images of Earth. Your strength does not come from power, she said softly. It comes from spirit. They spoke for a long time after that. She asked about simple Earth traditions, music, families, seasons, stories. Elias explained everything in basic words so she could understand. She listened with full attention, as if trying to imagine every picture in her mind. She laughed once quietly when he told her about children playing in the rain. My people would never do such a thing, she said, shaking her head. Rain is seen as a sign of weakness, but your children turn it into joy, Elias smiled. That's what makes humans unpredictable. As the hours passed, something changed between them. It was not friendship, not trust, not anything clear, but the distance between human and alien started to fade just a little. Zarinth was beginning to see Elias not as a prisoner, not as an enemy, but as a window into a world her people never understood. And Elias began to see that beneath her cold royal mask, she was someone who had never been given the chance to feel anything deeply. She was powerful yet lonely, strong yet burdened, curious yet trapped by her own position. When the guards finally came to escort him back to his chamber, Zarinth spoke softly before he left. Tomorrow we will talk again. I want to understand more. There is something about you. Something I cannot ignore. Elias nodded, and for the first time since the war began, he felt a spark of something unexpected, a small, uncertain connection forming between two enemies who never should have met. But connections like that were dangerous, and neither of them understood how much the galaxy would change because of it. Elias woke up the next morning with a strange feeling in his chest. The room around him was the same, with soft blue light and quiet walls, yet something inside him felt different. His mind kept returning to the long conversation he had with Empress Zarinth. She was unlike any leader he had ever met, calm, curious, distant, yet strangely warm. It felt wrong to think of her in anything but enemy terms, yet he could not deny the small spark of understanding that had formed between them. When the guards came to escort him again, Elias followed quietly. As they walked through the long silver halls, he noticed the atmosphere felt tenser than before. Velen officers whispered among themselves, their eyes following him with suspicion. Something had changed overnight, but he didn't know what. Inside the Empress's chamber, Zarinth stood near a large display showing movements of Velon ships. Her expression was sharper today, her posture straighter, as if she had spent the entire night preparing for a difficult battle, not on a battlefield, but inside her own empire. When Elias entered, she dismissed the guards with a single gesture. They stepped out and the room fell silent. Zarinth looked at him for a long moment, her violet eyes studying him with a mix of worry and determination. We do not have much time today, she said quietly. Things inside the High Council are changing. Elias stepped closer, confused. Because of me? Because of what they think you represent, she replied. The more I study your world, the more the Council believes I am becoming influenced. She said the last word with bitterness, as if it tasted wrong in her mouth. Elias frowned. I just answered your questions. Nothing more. Yes, she said. But they do not understand curiosity. To them, any change in my thinking is a threat. She turned away for a moment, taking a slow breath. Her hands rested on the edge of the holographic table. Elias could see tension in her shoulders, something heavy she was carrying alone. He approached carefully. What happened? Zarinth looked back at him with a serious expression. The Council intercepted a signal last night. They believe they know the location of Earth's last surviving colony. Elias felt a sudden shock run through him. That colony is all we have left. Those people are civilians, families, children. I know, she said softly, but the Council does not care. They want to destroy any trace of resistance. Elias swallowed hard. His thoughts raced. The colony had hidden far away beyond normal routes, using old, barely functional satellites to stay invisible. If the Velen truly had the coordinates, the colony would not stand a chance. When do they plan to attack? He asked urgently. Within days, she replied. They see this as the final step to end the war. Elias took a step back, his chest tight. He had always expected the end, but not like this. Not one final strike on the last innocent survivors. He looked at Zarinth. You could stop them. Her eyes softened with something like regret. I could, but doing so openly would mean turning against my own council. Would that matter? Elias asked. If you know innocent people will die. The Empress lowered her gaze slightly. I have ruled with the Council's support for many cycles. Challenging them means risking the stability of my empire, and perhaps my life. Elias didn't speak for a moment. He could see the conflict in her eyes, a mixture of duty, fear, pride, and something else she was afraid to name. She wanted to do the right thing, but she was trapped between her empire and her conscience. Zarinth walked toward the large window, staring out into the endless stars. Her voice was quiet when she spoke again. You humans fight with heart, but our people fight with order. If I break that order, everything I have built may crumble. Elias stepped beside her. Then maybe it was never built on the right things. The Empress turned her head slightly, her violet eyes meeting his. There was no anger there, only honesty, raw and clear. You are changing me, she said quietly. That is what the Council fears. I'm not trying to change you, Elias said. I'm just telling you the truth. And yet the truth feels like a storm inside me, she whispered. Elias's breath caught slightly at the emotion in her voice. She was not speaking as a ruler now, but as someone who had never confronted moral conflict before. Suddenly, a sharp alarm chime echoed through the chamber. The holographic table lit up, showing a council symbol. Zarinth's expression hardened. They are calling an emergency session, she said. They want me to authorize the strike on your colony. She looked at him one last time before walking toward the communication platform. Elias's heart pounded. He knew she was about to be forced into a decision that could shape the future of both their species. The council members appeared in holographic form, their tall purple figures lined in a circle around her. Their voices were firm and cold. Empress Zarinth, one of them said, the human prisoner has been here long enough. We must extract information directly. Another counselor added, we cannot allow you to be influenced by the emotional nature of this species. A third voice said sharply, authorize the attack, destroy the last human holdout. Zarinth's eyes narrowed. She stood tall, her voice steady. No, we will not attack civilians. The council chamber erupted in protest. Several voices rose at once. This is weakness. This is emotional corruption. This is betrayal of Valen law. But Zarinth raised her hand, silencing them. I am Empress. My judgment stands. For a moment, Elias felt a small surge of relief, but the feeling vanished quickly when the council's tone changed. In that case, one counselor said coldly, we must act to protect the Dominion from compromised leadership. Elias saw Zarinth stiffen. She immediately understood what they meant. They were preparing to remove her. The holograms disappeared. Zarinth turned back to Elias with urgency in her eyes. There is no more time. The council will send guards to detain me. And then they'll attack the colony, Elias said. Yes, she answered. Unless someone stops them, he stared at her. Someone like you? Someone like us, she corrected softly. I cannot protect the colony alone. Elias felt something shift inside him. Fear, hope, determination all mixing together. What can I do? I'm one man. But you know the colony's weaknesses, she said. You know their hidden routes, their signals. You can warn them. You can save them. Elias looked at her in shock. You're helping me escape? She nodded slowly. I will give you access to my private navigation wing. From there you can take a scout vessel. It is small enough to avoid detection. Why? He asked, almost whispering. Why risk everything for me? Zarinth took a slow breath. Because you made me see your people with new eyes. Because your hope is stronger than my fear. And because something inside me will not allow me to watch your people fall. She reached out and placed a small glowing device into his hand. It held the access codes he needed. Footsteps echoed from down the hall. Heavy, fast, and many. Zarinth's voice grew urgent. Go, there is a service door behind the throne. It leads to the lower wing. Use the codes. Do not stop. Elias hesitated, staring at her. What about you? She stepped back, her expression strong and clear. I will face the council. They will not break me. The guards' shadows appeared under the door. Zarinth looked at Elias one last time. Her voice softened, barely more than a whisper. Run! Your people need you. Elias turned and fled toward the hidden door, feeling the weight of her courage behind him. Behind him, as the door closed, he heard the chamber doors burst open, and the Empress stood alone against her own empire. Elias ran through the narrow service corridor, his footsteps echoing softly against the metallic floor. The small glowing device in his hand pulsed with gentle light, guiding him deeper into the lower wing of the massive throne ship. He did not know the exact path, but the device seemed to react whenever he reached a junction, flashing brighter when he chose the correct direction. Zarinth had planned everything carefully. She knew how to move quietly within her own ship, and now she shared that knowledge with him. But Elias also knew that every second counted. The council guards would soon learn he had escaped, and once they realized the Empress had helped him, the entire ship would turn into a net designed to catch him. He focused on moving fast, staying quiet, and trusting that Zarinth had given him the one chance he needed. Far above him in the Empress's chamber, Zarinth stood surrounded by armed Veloon guards. Her face remained calm, though her heart beat faster than usual. She had known the council would respond quickly, but she had hoped for at least a few minutes more. The guards formed a tight circle around her, waiting for orders from the High Council. The chamber door closed behind them, trapping her inside her own throne room. One of the guards spoke, his voice steady but respectful. "Empress, by order of the council, you are to be temporarily confined until we confirm your loyalty." Zarinth looked directly into his eyes. "My loyalty has never been in question. It is your understanding that is weak." The guard stiffened but avoided reacting. Valen's soldiers were trained not to show emotion, but even he looked uneasy about turning his weapons toward the ruler he had sworn to protect. Meanwhile, Elias reached a small transport dock. The door opened smoothly when he held the glowing device near the scanner. Inside the dock sat several small ships, sleek and sharp like silver arrows. Most were locked behind energy barriers, but one ship, the smallest, had its barrier lowered, waiting for him. He boarded quickly, settling into the cockpit. The controls were unfamiliar, covered in glowing symbols, but the navigation started automatically. Zarinth had programmed the ship for him. It recognized his presence and activated its systems. A calm voice spoke through the speakers. "Flight path set. Cloaking activated." Elias wasted no time. He closed the hatch, strapped himself in, and hit the launch control. The ship hummed softly, then shot forward, exiting through a narrow launch tunnel that opened into open space. For a moment, the stars seemed to stretch around him as the ship accelerated with incredible speed. Behind him, alarms began to echo across the Veloon flagship. In the throne room, the guards received new orders. "The human prisoner has escaped," a voice said over their communication links. "Empress Zarinth is suspected of aiding him. Secure her. Intercept the fleeing vessel." The guards tightened their stance. Zarinth lifted her chin. "Do what you think you must," she said calmly. "But understand this. Your actions today may destroy everything the Valen Dominion stands for." She did not fight or resist. She allowed the guards to escort her out of the chamber, but her mind remained steady. She knew she had done the right thing. Elias sped through space, navigating around nearby asteroids and distant debris. His ship remained hidden under its cloak, but he could see Valen's ships spreading out behind him, scanning the area. He pushed the ship faster, urging it onward. He had to reach the colony before the Veloon fleet did. Images flashed through his mind. Children playing in the broken remains of old buildings, families planting food in small gardens, old men repairing broken radios, women teaching young ones how to read by dim lantern light. The colony was fragile, peaceful, and unprepared for war. If he didn't reach them in time, they would be wiped out. Hours passed. His small ship crossed through quiet regions of space and entered the outer barrier of the colony's hidden zone. Tiny satellites blinked in greeting, recognizing his ship's emergency broadcast code. As soon as he landed near the colony's communication tower, people rushed out to meet him, faces filled with shock, relief, and fear. A young woman ran up to him. "Captain Rowan, we thought you were dead." "No time," Elias said urgently. "The Valen found this place. They're coming." A wave of fear spread through the crowd. Elders whispered. Children clung to their parents. But as the panic rose, Elias's voice grew stronger. "We can still protect this place," he said. "We just need to work fast." Humans did not crumble under fear, they moved. Within minutes, the colony turned into a storm of activity. Old defense turrets were pulled from storage. Small fighter crafts were fueled, and civilians were moved into underground shelters. The colony was weak, but with enough effort, they could hold off an attack long enough for a miracle to happen. But hours later, when the first Valen ships appeared on the horizon, Elias felt his heart tighten again. The fleet was massive, shadows stretching across space like a storm cloud. He stood at the front command station, gripping the railing as tension filled the air. Suddenly, something unexpected happened. The Valen ships stopped. They didn't fire. They didn't advance. They simply hovered in silence. Elias frowned. "Why aren't they attacking?" A communication officer gasped. "Sir, there's another fleet arriving." Elias looked up at the screens. Another formation of ships slipped into view, sleek, shining vessels carrying the Empress's personal symbols. But these ships were not aligned with the main Velen fleet. They positioned themselves between the colony and the attackers. A chill ran through Elias. She came. A moment later, a message appeared on the screen, broadcasted across all ships, Velen and human. The hologram of Empress Zarinth appeared. Standing tall and calm despite her confinement earlier, her voice was steady and strong. "I am Empress Zarinth of the Velen Dominion," she announced. "I stand against the destruction of innocence. Any fleet that fires upon the human colony will face my command forces." Gasps filled the colony control room. Even Elias felt his breath catch. The council responded with fury through their own broadcast. "You are no longer acting as Empress. You are acting against Velen law." "Then I will rebuild the law," Zarinth replied. "One that is not built on fear." The council ordered their fleet to advance. But before they could move, Zarinth's loyal forces fired a warning shot, bright, sharp, and powerful enough to slice through a small moon. The council ships hesitated. A tense silence settled across space. Finally, the council fleet broke formation and retreated, one ship after another turning away. They were not ready to start a civil war against their own Empress. Not today. When the last enemy ship disappeared, cheers filled the colony. People cried, hugged, and lifted children into the air. Elias closed his eyes with relief. Humanity had survived again, not because of their weapons, but because of a choice made by someone who should have been their greatest enemy. Minutes later, a small transport ship landed near the colony. The ramp lowered and Empress Zarinth stepped out, escorted by only 2 guards. Her eyes met Elias's across the field. He walked toward her slowly, his voice soft when he reached her. "You defied your entire empire for us." She looked at him with calm strength. "I defied them because it was right." The colony watched them in silence. 2 leaders from different worlds standing face to face with no weapons, no anger, no fear. Elias lowered his voice. "What happens now?" Zarinth looked out over the colony, then at the stars above. "Now we rebuild, not as conqueror and prisoner, as allies." He felt something warm fill his chest, a quiet hope he had almost forgotten. For the first time since the war began, the galaxy felt like a place where peace was possible. And it all started with one human who would not bow down, and one Empress who dared to listen to her heart.